Ever had a Karen measure your driveway? Paper slaps, gate creaks. She mocked my old truck, called it an eyesore, said it dragged the neighborhood down. Flyers followed fines printed in gold ink, her name stamped like law. Then, sunlight hit the inspection plate, she never noticed state property right under the mud. Paper stamp, porch light flick. Turns out, every notice she filed was void by law. Next week, the same county clerk who received her complaints posted one more HOA license revoked. The diner clock read 7 to 12 when Patricia's heels clicked across the lot. Heat wobbled above the hoods. My coffee sat on the tailgate. She stopped beside my truck like a judge at a county fair and pulled in a smile that showed too many teeth. It started with a smile and a clipboard. "You keeping that relic here long?" she asked, tapping the dent near the wheel well. "It's parked in a space same as everyone," I said. She tilted the clipboard, gold letters catching light, HOA President. "It doesn't exactly raise property values, does it? It runs cleaner than it looks," I said. "It gets the work done." "Does it leak?" she said. "No," I said. "It hauls, it passes inspection. Every time." Two retirees at the window leaned toward their pancakes. The waitress paused at the door, coffee pot looping in her hand. Patricia angled her body so her voice carried. "Daniel, our standards call for a certain visual harmony." "Our standards," I said. "Community standards." Her pen ticked the board. "People talk. People also work," I said. "That's a working truck. You must be new to how we do things." "New, not blind," I said. Sunlight scraped across the hood and caught the plate under the mud. A faint oval lifted from years of dust. She produced a pink slip and smoothed it against the paint. The stamp thudded across the lot. "Received, 03-17. The ink read at the top. "What am I receiving?" I asked. "A community standards notice," she said. "Nothing formal. Think of it as encouragement." "Encouragement," I said. "Neighbors appreciate cooperation." She slid the slip under the wiper. "Trim the presents. Or relocate the vehicle." "It's not a lawn gnome," I said. "It's a tool. A tool can still be an eyesore." Minnie Cliff. The waitress pushed the door with her hip and called, "Top you off, hon." The room behind her fell quiet. "Looks fine to me," one retiree said. "The coffee or the truck," the other said. "The truck," the waitress said, "and maybe the man driving it." I took a photo of the notice. Then I wiped a thumb-wide lane through the mud on the lower plate. The oval came clear. "State inspection, do not remove." Patricia leaned closer. "What is that old sticker?" I said. "Doesn't come off easy." "It should," she said. "We have rules about decals and branding." "Do you—" I said, framing a second photo with the plate and the pink slip together. "I'm not here to fight with you," she said. "I'm here to keep Maple Ridge beautiful." "You told me beauty lived in harmony," I said. "Harmony isn't one voice. You'll want to be careful, Daniel. Harmony depends on universal participation." "Are we done?" I asked. "For now," she said. "I'll check back." "Bring paper thicker than your smile," I said. "Your tone isn't neighborly." "Coffee fixes tone," the waitress said. "Not policy," Patricia said. "Policy changes when people read," a retiree said. "Neither is measuring the man's work by his dents." Minnie Cliff. The retirees exchanged a look. One lifted his cup. The other mouthed, "Easy." Patricia slid the clipboard against her side. "You're learning, Mr. Foster." "I prefer voluntary compliance. I prefer voluntary respect," I said. "Noted," she said. She stepped back, heels crunching gravel. "Community harmony depends on universal participation." She said it like scripture and turned for the door. I waited until she crossed the threshold, then shot a final picture of the windshield. I folded the notice and tucked it into the envelope I used for invoices. Outside, the heat pressed down like a lid. "She'll post about it," the waitress said. "Let her," I said. On the porch, the wood was already warm. Sarah had left a note on the mailbox back by 9. I set the cup on the rail and flattened the notice. I opened my notebook and wrote the time, the place, and the words she used. Then I added 2 photos, one of the slip, one of the plate. "Evidence beats memory," I said. Paper outlives noise. Print 2 copies later, I said. Make that 3 for backups, I said. The neighborhood moved in small sounds, lawnmower starting, a screen door catching. Sarah called from the driveway. Everything okay? Had a visit, I said, from her clipboard and all. She stamped a notice. At 7 in the morning. She wanted an audience, Sarah said. She got one. What did you say? Nothing that won't read well. This is going in a folder, she said. Folder gets a new label today. Maple. Incidents, I said. It is, I said. First page. You going to wash the plate clean? Not yet, I said. Let it speak when it needs to. Minnie, Cliff. A breeze found the porch. My coffee steam wavered, once thinned, and disappeared. You okay? Sarah asked. I'd rather file than shout, I said. Good, she said, because she'll come back. I know. What's your plan? Stay calm, I said. Document. Don't give her anything she can twist. So, we wait and file, Sarah said. Exactly, I said. And the truck, I looked at the plate through the rail. For now, it was a rumor of a seal, the kind of proof that waits. That plate isn't mine to hide, I said. The first flyer showed up before noon, white paper teal border printed with the phrase, Unity through compliance. The corners fluttered in the heat like it was trying to breathe. I pulled it from under my wiper and unfolded it on the porch rail. The words were calm, almost polite. The message wasn't. Sarah stepped out, phone in hand. You need to see this. She turned the screen. My truck filled the frame on a neighborhood Facebook post, its muddy bumper circled in red. Patricia's caption read, Every neighborhood has one. Let's do better. The comments were the worst part, neighbors I'd waved to last week, now clicking hearts and thumbs. Someone joked about starting a GoFundMe for Daniel's decent paint job. Sarah's jaw tightened. Want me to reply? No, I said. We document, not react. She sighed and started taking screenshots. A lawnmower started down the block, coughed twice, and died. That small silence hit harder than the flyer. By mid-afternoon, there were 4 more, 1 on the doormat, 1 in the mailbox, 2 tucked under Sarah's windshield wipers, all the same font, all signed P. Lawson, President. I stacked them edge to edge on the kitchen table, each with a time written in pen. Pattern means intent, I said. Sarah nodded. Pattern means motive. At 3, we drove to the post office. The heat came off the asphalt like it was pushing back. Inside, the air conditioner buzzed like a saw. I showed the clerk the flyers. He didn't even need to read them. 40 of those went out this morning, he said quietly. All to Maple Ridge addresses. Same envelope, same return name. Patricia, I asked. He raised his eyebrows, which was all the confirmation I needed. You didn't hear it from me, he said, reaching for the next stack of mail. I thanked him and stepped back into the glare. Sarah photographed the meter ink on one flyer. Proof of distribution, she said. Back home, a new notice was taped to our porch window. Community appearance matters. The bullet points accused no one but aimed at everyone. Avoid distressed finishes. Relocate unsightly vehicles. Sarah muttered, She's turned HOA bylaws into performance art. She's turned gossip into government, I said. Sarah laughed once without humor. I'm saving that line for the report. She sat at the table organizing screenshots into folders labeled posts, comments, likes. They'll delete half of these when the heat turns on. Then we print them first, I said. The mower across the street groaned, stopped again. A hush settled over the houses. You could almost hear paper rustling under doors. I opened a new manila folder, wrote Maple Incidents on the tab, and began sliding the flyers inside. We'll need a chain of custody, I said. Sarah handed me a mailing envelope addressed to myself. We'll mail the originals, she said. Postmark makes it official. We drove back to the post office and asked for a hand cancel. The clerk stamped it once hard. GUO 14-2024, 14-07. On the way home, we stopped at the bulletin board by the park. Patricia had pinned another sheet. Compliance is a team sport. Half the phone number tabs were gone. Sarah tore one loose and pocketed it. souvenir. Back home, the sun leaned west. I spread the day's evidence on the counter. Flyers, screenshots, postmark photo. "Look at this," Sarah said. 3 different profiles use the exact same sentence, "Harmony requires visual consistency." Copy-paste activism. "Bots or choir," I said. She smiled. "Either way, we've got the sheet music." The dog, 2 doors down, barked once, then quit. Even the air felt hesitant. I slid everything into the brown folder, pressed it flat. Every insult gets a page number. Sarah leaned against the counter. "You sure you want to keep all this?" "It's heavy. Not as heavy as regret," I said. Outside, the mower tried one last time and died with a dry wheeze. The silence that followed felt earned. Sarah's voice softened. "They're trying to shame us into moving." "I've been shamed by better," I said. "Then what's next?" I tapped the folder. "Order. Documentation. No yelling, no chaos. We fight by paper." She nodded slowly. "You sound like Deputy Richards." Experience rubs off. The porch light clicked on early, catching Patricia's sash as she walked her dog past the house. The embroidered gold thread looked frayed at the edges. "She's unraveling," Sarah whispered. "Good," I said. "Means the stitching's fake." Patricia glanced up, eyes narrowing at the sight of me on the porch. She tugged her dog forward and pretended not to see the camera in my hand. I took one more photo, the porch light haloing her sash, and slipped my phone into my pocket. Sarah opened the folder drawer beside me. "Where's it go? Top left?" I said. She slid it in with the slow finality of a closing door. The metal latch caught with a click that sounded like punctuation. I looked at her then at the flyers still on the counter. Their slogans all bled together: unity, harmony, compliance. "Same song," I said. "Different verse," she answered. I nodded. "But harmony isn't the same as control." Sarah cleared the breakfast plates and set down a stack of ledgers as if she were laying bricks. Columns ran like narrow streets, tight handwriting marching past staples and coffee rings. She didn't speak at first. She just drew a ruler down a page and circled 3 identical totals. "What am I looking at?" I asked. "Dues in," she said. "Then magic. Magic money vanishes in the same direction every month." She turned a page. No vendors, no board approvals, just community services. I watched her pencil hop from line to line. The kitchen smelled like dish soap and paper dust. My truck keys lay by the fruit bowl, mud flecks dried in the grooves. Sarah pulled a photo from her folder and slid it to me. It showed the VIN plate behind my driver's side door seal, old but legible. She'd traced the numbers with a highlighter. State Maintenance Program gleamed faintly above the sequence. "That tag," she said. "It isn't decoration." "Never said it was," I answered. "Let's make it work." We moved to the garage bench. The concrete radiated noon heat. A box fan rattled like an old truck door. Sarah opened her laptop, the screen bathing our hands in blue. "Who do we call?" I asked. "Not a call," she said. "A look up." She keyed the VIN into a state portal. The cursor blinked. The site timed out. She tried again, slower. "Come on," I said. "Wait." She breathed through her nose, steady. "Don't rush a locked door." A text buzzed. "George Hoffman." Sarah read aloud, "In town. Stopping by. Bring your plate photo." "George," I said. "The inspector retired," she said. "Still knows where the light switches are." We heard a car door and a knuckle rap on the frame. George stepped into the glare with a cardboard tube under his arm and a smile that had seen worse. He wore a faded polo, the outline of a badge clip ghosting the fabric. "Daniel," he said, shaking my hand. "Sarah." "Thanks for coming," Sarah said. He set the tube down, pulled out a rolled highway of forms, and pointed to a rectangle of legalese. When a vehicle remains in a state lease or custody program, private entities can't impose enforcement. Different rulebook. I showed him the VIN photo. He squeezed his glasses up his nose and squinted. "That's our format," he said. "Older run, but valid if not released." "Released?" I asked. "Think of it as being checked out of the system," he said. "If nobody checked it back in the state, still has an interest. "And if she find me," I said. He looked at me over the rim. Then she tried to find the state. The box fan rattled once, then coasted quiet. Silent beat. Even the calculator on the bench ticked exactly once, a single plastic click that sounded like a decision. Sarah turned the laptop toward him. "Portal keeps timing out." George slid into the chair and typed like he was unlocking a toolbox, careful sure. He toggled an archive link. The screen returned a page nobody had cleaned in years. State Fleet Active Leases, Historical. He entered my VIN again. A record blinked up lease maintenance, extended term. A line below property interest retained. George nodded once. "There it is, plain English," I said. He clicked the print icon and let the laser hiss to life. "Your truck is under a state program," he said. "If an HOA wants to touch it, they need to read this first." Sarah smiled with the kind of relief that still holds a little anger. Numbers don't lie. People do. George chuckled. "Frame that." Already drafting, Sarah said. We carried the printouts to the kitchen table. Sarah slid a legal pad under the stack like a tray. She opened a template she'd saved, Notice 1207. "Plain words," George said. "Keep it readable. 2 sentences max." Sarah typed without looking up. "Upon verification of VN, XX, the vehicle identified remains under state maintenance program with retained property interest. Unauthorized enforcement by private associations is void and sanctionable under 1207. She added a header. Received. 0317 blinked in the top corner of the page, her placeholder for a fax stamp. "Let's make that real," I said. We moved to the old fax scanner by the pantry. I dusted the glass and checked the phone line. Sarah fed the sheet. The machine whined, caught the edge, and pulled. The bar crawled across the small screen, one grainy block at a time. "Where to?" George asked. "County Clerk's general file," Sarah said. "Open records, get attention." The fax beeped and spit the confirmation. The top line listed a timestamp. The second line echoed a small victory in black dots received 0317. I took a photo of the confirmation taped to the notice. Then another of the VIN printout. I set both beside the folder labeled Maple Incidents and added a new label under it, Exhibit C Vehicle Status. George opened his cardboard tube and unrolled a plat overlay of the neighborhood. He weighed the corners with salt shakers and a wrench. "You're outside the covenanted block," he said, tapping our lot. "Boundary pin sits here. Separate plat, separate headache." "Patricia acts like the lines move when she talks," I said. "Lines move on paper," he said. "That's why we stack ours higher." Sarah printed 2 more copies of the notice. She stapled one to a manila backing, slid another into a sleeve, and handed it to me. "Keep this in the truck." "Front seat?" I asked. "Glove box," George said. "Feels more official." The printer whirred again. Sarah gathered the warm pages and clipped them into a thin report. She wrote, "Foster, Fairhire 1207 notice on the tab." "Proof ready," she said. George checked his watch and stood. "Next, you'll want a calm voice at the hearing," he said. "Short sentences. Say exactly what the paper says, nothing else." "I'm better at wrenches than microphones," I said. "Paper carries the torque," he answered, amused. "You just hold the handle." He folded the plat, slipped it into his tube, and offered his hand. "You've got what you need." "Feels like the first time this week," I said. Sarah gathered the ledgers, smoothed the top sheet, and rested her palm on the stack. We listened to the house breathe, the box fan catching again, the fridge knocking, once the calculator giving one more lonely tick. I slid the notice into the folder and capped the pen. "What now?" Sarah asked. I looked at the clock, then at the fax confirmation drying on the counter. The black dots looked like a quiet signal flare. "We don't argue," I said. "We file." By Friday, I had 3 citations in a row, each printed on cream stock with the same gold ink signature looping like a scold. They weren't tickets by law, just theater by letterhead, but theater plays loud when it stacks. I lined them on the counter so the dates made a neat row. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and slid them into a manila sleeve marked Exhibit D Citation Sequence. "Enough," Sarah said. "Yeah," I said. Time to quit catching and start throwing. We drove to the sheriff's substation off County Road 6. Fluorescent light hummed over a desk pitted by decades of elbows. Deputy Richards looked up from a fan of reports and gave that tired half-smile he saved for regulars and fools. "I didn't want to be either. Mr. Foster," he said. "You brought paper." "3 rounds of it," I said, laying out the citations. Same language, same signature, same week. He flipped the first page, then the second, then let the third land like a stamp. "Pattern matters," he said. "That's what I'm here to say in English," I answered. He pulled a pre-printed complaint from a stack and clicked a pen. Complaint 4A sat at the top in crisp black. Below, a grid of boxes waited for a story to fit. He began reading the headings out loud, not for himself, but for the microphone that wasn't visible. Name, address, source of alleged misuse, frequency, intended effect. Intended effect is deterrence, I said. Public shame is the vehicle. He nodded, once checked a box. Keep your phrasing simple, he said. Simple is hard to argue with. The dispatcher slid past to the copier with a rubber band bundle. The machine coughed, warmed, and began to breathe pages. The air smelled like warm toner and old carpet. "Any threats?" Richards asked. "Just the word compliance wearing fancy clothes," I said. "Same as a shove in a crowd," he said, and ticked pattern of misuse on the form. The little square filled like a verdict you could hold. The phone on his desk buzzed. He let it die. "You saw anything criminal on the social site?" "Explicit stuff. Only the usual careful cruelty," I said. "Screenshots are here." I tapped the sleeve. "We mailed copies to ourselves. Hand cancel." "Good," he said. "People delete. Postmarks don't." Sarah set down a thin folder. Sequence chart on the left. Distribution evidence on the right. We mapped time of day. Mornings and mid-afternoons. Richards lifted a brow. "She plans the audience." "She wants a lunch crowd," I said. He took the stack and slid it into a tray labeled Intake. "We're not a court," he said. "But we do keep a record. That record tells a story to people who make decisions. That's the idea." He read the complaint back to me line by line. I answered in short sentences the way George coached me. Vehicle registered, with special status, proof VIN record, state maintenance program, retained interest, requested action. Stop the misuse and log it. He checked one last box and signed. Then he pushed the page across the desk so I could sign my name next to his. "Anything else you want on record?" he asked. I looked at the citations, the teal flyers in my mind, the gold ink trying to be law. "Just this," I said. "When decency's ignored, paper becomes armor." He actually smiled at that, a full one. "That plays," he said. He wrote the line in the margin and initialed it. The dispatcher returned with copies and slipped them into a red-bordered jacket. File Citizen Complaints arced across the tab. She stamped the cover. Received landed with a soft thud, the numbers 0317 printing underneath like a ritual. "Scanner room's free," she said, "if you want to add attachments." We followed her to the little printer room, the kind of bright closet that makes you squint and confess. I fed in the 3 gold ink citations the flyers, the screenshots, the hand cancel photo, the powder 12-07 notice with its fax stamp. The machine ate and echoed them, each page chirping as it arrived. Sarah watched the counter tick upward. "Chain of custody stays here," the dispatcher said. "You get a certified copy." "Perfect," Sarah said. When we stepped back to Richard's desk, he had another form out, shorter, colder. "This is a courtesy notice," he said. "It tells the complainant the department has logged a pattern and advised against further misuse. It is not an order, but it is a mirror." "A mirror's fine," I said. "Let her see the shape. You want it mailed?" "Yes," I said. "Certified, yes." He filled the address, capped his pen, and stood. "I can't promise quiet," he said. "But I can promise the right kind of noise. That's all I'm asking." We hit the lot just as the sun slid behind the water tower. Police cruisers idled in a row like patient cattle. Sarah reached for the door handle. I looked across the lane at a figure on the far curb. Patricia stood near the hedge's leash looped in one hand, HOA sash draped over her shoulder like a pageant that didn't end. She held her phone low, not recording, not calling, just holding. She didn't wave. I didn't either. When we pulled away, the cruiser behind us washed the station wall in red. For a few seconds, the daylight turned red, then darker red, and finally back to plain evening. Silent beat. Taillights blinked and the lot exhaled. At home, the porch bulb flickered twice as if it needed to think. I opened the mailbox and found a new teal flyer. I slid it unread into my folder. The house creaked the way wood admits it's tired. "Next steps," Sarah asked. "Print 2 more copies of the complaint," I said. "One for the truck, one for the fridge." She opened the door. "You want the fridge to testify?" "It won't argue with the judge," I said. I laid Complaint Measure 4A on the kitchen counter and pressed flat along the stapled edge. The form looked older in our light, more official because it was tired. I wrote the date in ink that didn't gleam and set it next to Exhibit C vehicle status and Exhibit D citation so they made a row that felt like a wall. "When this comes to a hearing," Sarah said, "what do you say first?" "Nothing fancy," I said. "Just what the paper says." She nodded, satisfied. Out on the street, someone tested a horn twice short and impatient. Then, quiet again as if the block agreed to stop making points and start counting. I looked at the porch through the window. The bulb steadied. The notice stack held it square. Somewhere across the way, Patricia's sash would still be riding her shoulder gold thread, glinting on and off when cars passed. "Next stop, public hearing," I said. The folding chairs scraped like skates on concrete as the community center filled. The mic on the center aisle squealed, then settled into a low hum. At the front table, the clerk lifted a red folder and angled it so the room could read the stamp, filed 412-07. Patricia stood near the projector cart sash, straight chin higher than usual. Before we begin, she said a reminder that neighborhood harmony depends on universal participation. A few heads nodded. Others stared at their knees. George slid into the seat beside me. Short sentences he whispered. "Say what the paper says." Sarah squeezed my arm once. The projector warmed. A square of light hit the screen. Patricia clicked the remote. A photo of my truck filled the wall, mud-caked bumper-dented fender, the old oval on the plate, just visible. She tapped the screen with the remote as if it were a gavel. "This is the standard we're trying to elevate," she said. "We all love vintage, but—" "Point of order," the clerk said, voice even. "We're here on 2 items, a complaint and a notice." Patricia smiled purely for the residents. "Then let's handle both. We've made several polite requests about this vehicle." George leaned forward. "Go when the window opens." I stood. "I'll keep to the agenda," I said. "Complaint first." The clerk nodded. "Name for the record. Daniel Foster, 247 Pine Valley. Proceed." I held up a thin packet in a clear sleeve, the POW12-07 notice, the fax confirmation, the VIN record. "The vehicle at issue remains under a state maintenance program," I said. "Retained property interest applies." Patricia laughed softly. "We're discussing curb appearance, not legal fantasies." The clerk reached for the red folder. "We have a filed notice here." He opened it, scanned, then looked at the projector image. "Can we zoom?" Patricia hesitated. Then the remote clicked. The photo tightened. The oval on the plate filled the screen, State Maintenance Program. A whisper moved through the chairs like wind in tall grass. George spoke without looking away from the screen. "If she find you," he murmured, "she find the state." Patricia found her smile again. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is an old sticker decorative, I'm sure." "Decorative," Sarah said, standing. "We have the VIN match." "Let's verify calmly," the clerk said. He adjusted his glasses and lifted a second sheet from the red folder. "Record indicates extended term lease. Property interest retained by state. Reference 1207. Patricia shifted the sash higher. "Even if that's true, the optics don't override law," George said, still seated. "They decorate it." A few residents chuckled, then fell quiet as the clerk raised a hand. "One at a time." I set the clear sleeve on the podium. We filed the notice. We mailed copies to ourselves. We brought the record. Patricia folded her arms. The rest of us must look at that truck every day. Plenty of us look at our mortgages every day, a man in back said. That's uglier. Soft laughter. Patricia flushed. The clerk turned to me. Mr. Foster, summarize your request. Recognize the HOA 12-07 status, I said. Void the citations. Advise against further misuse. Patricia took a step toward the front. We're a community, not a courthouse. If we let this slide, what next? Boats on blocks Tarps George finally stood. Name for the record, the clerk prompted. George Hoffman, he said. Retired state inspector. A ripple of interest, then stillness. George kept his hands on the back of the chair in front of him. The plate is not decoration. The record is not ambiguous. The filings are not optional. Patricia tried to laugh again and found no one to catch it. So the neighborhood has to live with an eyesore because an old program never closed a tab. Programs close when paperwork says they close, George said. You taught this neighborhood to respect paper. Respect it now. The room drew a single breath in. The mic popped once, small, bright, exact. Silent beat. The clerk tapped the red folder. On the record, the notice is filed, the record is verified, and the program status is active. He looked up. Unauthorized enforcement is void. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The sentence settled over the seats like a blanket. Somewhere near the doors, a chair leg adjusted, then froze. Patricia's smile fell apart at the edges. You can't be serious. I'm reading, the clerk said. A woman from the second row raised a hand. So, those flyers, advise Ms. Lawson to cease distribution, the clerk said. The department has a complaint logged. Patterns matter. Patricia looked for the projector remote and couldn't find it. This is a witch hunt. One truck, one. Sarah's voice carried just enough. One standard. One. George put a palm out low, and I stayed quiet. The clerk gathered the documents, squared them, and slid the red folder aside. Next item, he said. Refund discussion is reserved. We're adjourned on this item. Patricia stood very still. The sash a bright loop that didn't belong to any authority in the room. She aimed a look at me meant to sting. It landed and did nothing. I reached for the mic and pressed the button so it clicked off a clean, final sound that the whole room could hear. Paper outlives noise, I said. The county sent 2 unmarked sedans that morning, no sirens, no fanfare, just the quiet authority of a clipboard and a warrant. The HOA shed squatted behind Patricia's house tin roof buckled a single padlock dangling like an ornament. The investigator in a navy jacket clicked a pen against his notebook. Maple Ridge Homeowners Association, he asked. That's the one, I said. He lifted the lock, cut the zip tie, and swung the door open. Dust rolled out with the smell of copier ink and lavender cleaner. Banker boxes sat in perfect rows labeled with gold marker meeting minutes. 2019, Budget Reports, Community Pride Initiative. Sarah stepped behind him, phone camera rolling. She's neat, she murmured. He pulled the first binder, flipped a few pages, then stopped. Same signature, same pen pressure 6 years apart. He angled it toward the light. And here, identical timestamps. Sarah frowned. Every meeting at 3:17. He smiled without humor. You'd be amazed how punctual fraud can be. He laid the binder flat and checked the next. Unanimous vote. 5 names, he said. 2 of these people are deceased. I exhaled through my nose. She didn't even change the pen color. Outside, Patricia's voice rose and fell like a small storm. This is harassment. You can't just barge in. The deputy at the door didn't look up from his clipboard. Ma'am, it's an audit. You're welcome to observe. Patricia crossed her arms, that HOA sash sliding off one shoulder like it was losing interest in its owner. The investigator kept working. He opened a folder labeled Deposits and pointed with his pen. Weekly transfers. Same amount, same Friday. Routing number ends in LCS. Lawson. Community Services, Sarah said. He nodded. A shell company. We'll confirm it's hers. Each page he bagged bore the same faint perfume, something expensive and out of place. He stamped the corner, received 0317, then sealed it in a transparent sleeve. The sound of the tape closing felt heavier than any argument. At the county clerk's office, the fluorescent lights hummed steady. The clerk, a thin woman with silver hair pinned like a badge, waited with a red folder already on the counter. Bold, across the front, filed, 412-07, audit findings. Patricia arrived a few minutes later, sunglasses on, indoors. "I demand to see the documents," she said. The clerk gestured to the folder. "They're public record now." The investigator flipped to the summary. EIN mismatch, duplicate signatures, fabricated minutes. He turned the page and looked directly at Patricia. "You understand, falsifying nonprofit documents is a state violation." She laughed sharply. "We're volunteers, not criminals." Sarah stepped forward, calm but steady. "Volunteers don't buy hot tubs with dues." Patricia's face hardened. "You don't know what it takes to maintain property values." The clerk continued reading, unmoved. "Per ordinance, the Maple Ridge HOA is operating without valid registration. Authority to collect dues is hereby suspended." Patricia blinked. "Suspended," the investigator corrected her. "Revoked." A low ripple passed through the handful of residents waiting for other business. The kind of sound people make when justice finally makes an appearance. The clerk reached for a stamp and pressed it down hard enough for everyone to hear. "License revoked." Patricia's mouth opened-closed, then opened again. "You can't revoke a community." "We're not revoking people," the clerk said. "We're revoking your right to speak for them." The investigator set a plastic evidence pouch on the counter. "Keys stamps any official insignia." Patricia hesitated, fingers twitching at her sash. "You'll have to take them." Sarah's voice came soft. "No one's taking anything, Patricia. You're just returning what was never yours." The investigator extended the pouch. Patricia slid the sash off and folded it once-twice until it was a thin line of glossy fabric. Then she dropped it inside along with a single tarnished key. The pouch gave a quiet crinkle as air escaped. "That's it," she said. For now, the investigator replied. "Funds are frozen, pending restitution." The words seemed to pull the floor out from under her. She steadied herself against the counter. "Restitution." "Every dollar," he said. "The paper trail's clean." Sarah touched my sleeve. "We should go." The clerk signed across the seal of the pouch, date-stamped it, and pinned a copy of the order to the corkboard behind her desk. The red ink glowed under the fluorescent light. Patricia looked up at it, eyes unfocused. "I built this neighborhood." The investigator closed his folder. "Then you'll appreciate maintenance," he said. She turned toward the door, slower now. Outside, the sound of cicadas buzzed against the thick summer air. The sash's faint shimmer caught one last bit of sun before the deputy zipped it away in the evidence case. I watched through the window as the deputy sealed the shed lock. The same click echoed that morning, and now again, final certain. Sarah exhaled. "It's done." "Almost," I said. "Paper still travels." George arrived just as Patricia's car pulled away. He tipped his cap. I heard he said, "How's she taking it?" "She's quiet," I said. "For once." He nodded toward the folder under my arm. "Keep that copy. Bureaucracy forgets what people don't remind it." "Already labeled it," I said. "Prop number 2, resolved." He smiled faintly. "You're learning." We stood there a while, the courthouse hum filling the space where shouting used to be. The red folder on the counter caught the late light like a warning and a promise at once. Patricia didn't look back when she drove off her taillights, two small, shaking dots disappearing behind the oaks. Sarah whispered, "Silence has weight and witnesses." The words stayed with me heavier than any gavel. The town's noise returned slowly, doors closing, feet on gravel, the kind of everyday sounds that feel like freedom measured in decibels. And somewhere behind the glass, a single key and an empty sash waited in their plastic bag, tagged and still proof that paper wins. The courtroom clock ticked loud enough to count. 2 hands, no second markers, just a steady click that made time feel heavier than it should. The clerk stepped through the side door carrying a stainless tray. On it lay a mesh evidence pouch with a single key, a short stack of sealed envelopes and a red folder stamped Restitution Schedule. Sarah squeezed my arm once. George slid into the bench behind us, nodding toward the tray. "That's your echo," he whispered. "Keys always ring twice." Patricia sat at the opposite table, eyes on the envelopes like they might apologize for being real. Her sash was gone, in its place a plain jacket. She kept her hands flat as if pressing down on something that wanted out. "All rise," the bailiff said. We stood. The judge took the bench robe, settling in a clean line. He scanned the docket, then the room, then the red folder. When he spoke, the microphone caught the first consonant and clicked a small electrical throat clear that made everyone still. "Case concerning Maple Ridge Homeowners Association," he said. "Parties present." The clerk read names into the record. Daniel Foster, Sarah Foster, Patricia Lawson, County Investigator, Retired State Inspector George Hoffman in attendance. George lifted 2 fingers. The judge's eyes paused, then moved on. "Proceed," the judge said. The county counsel rose. "Your Honor, the record before you includes audit findings. EIN mismatches, duplicate signatures, and fabricated minutes along with the filed Harter 12-07 notice verifying state property interest in the vehicle that triggered the cited enforcement. The license to act as an HOA has been revoked by county authority. Today's purpose is restitution and final orders." Patricia's attorney stood, then lowered himself again when the judge raised a palm. "You'll have time," the judge said. "But the paper reads first." The clerk lifted the red folder, opened it carefully, and placed a single page atop the stack. She read without heat. Funds transferred from accounts labeled dues to Lawson Community Services total 6 years $487,000. Recommended restitution to affected residents pro rata, scheduled by quarter. The courtroom exhaled. The clock ticked. The tray did not move. Patricia shifted. "Your Honor, I sit," the judge said. The word was quiet and landed like a book closing. He looked at us. "Mr. Foster, anything to add to the record?" "Short sentences," George murmured. I stood. We filed the notice. The record matched. We didn't argue. We documented. The judge nodded once, a movement as efficient as a stamp. "Thank you." He turned back to Patricia. "Ms. Lawson, do you wish to address restitution and the record?" She stood holding the edge of the table. "I worked for this neighborhood. I kept standards. I gave my time." "Standards are not currency," the judge said. "You'll repay currency." Patricia swallowed. "Then I apologize." She kept her eyes on the tray. "To the residents. For overreach." She said the last word like it cut. The clerk wrote 2 lines and slid the pad to the judge. He signed, then tapped the microphone once. Silent beat 1, 2, 3. The room held its breath for all of it. "On the record," he said, "restitution is ordered per the attached schedule. Funds are frozen pending distribution. Any further attempts to act as an HOA or to enforce in the name of one are enjoined. The apology is entered into the record." He looked at Patricia. "You will read it again at distribution." George leaned forward. "This is why we file," he whispered. The clerk lifted the tray and crossed to the well. The pouch with the single key glinted under the fluorescence. She set the tray on the evidence cart with a soft metal ring that sounded like something being returned to gravity. "For Maple Ridge Shed Access," she said. "Key to be held by the county until refunds are completed." Patricia's attorney finally stood. "Your Honor, we request latitude regarding timing." "Denied," the judge said. "Schedule stands." He picked up the gavel, paused just long enough for the mic to click again, and brought it down. The sound was neat and honest. Applause started in the back, then leapt like kindling scatter-catch fill. The bailiff almost raised a hand, then let it go. It wasn't shouting. It was relief. Sarah pressed her forehead against my shoulder and laughed once, a small, astonished sound. "It happened," she whispered. "It held," I said. Patricia stared straight ahead, eyes glassy but dry. The clerk began handing out envelopes, names, alphabetized amounts typed. When she reached us, the paper was warm from the copier. Restitution Q1 sat above a number that felt less like money and more like proof. Sign for receipt, the clerk said. I signed. Sarah signed. George watched the ink settle. Patricia's name was called. She didn't move. Ms. Lawson, the judge said. She stood and took the envelope with 2 fingers like it might break her skin. For the record, she said, voice thin. I wish no, the judge said. For the record, you comply. She nodded once, a motion that surrendered nothing and everything, and sat. The clerk returned to the cart and lifted the mesh pouch again. Keys will be delivered as part of the audit's closeout, she said for the microphone. Chain maintained. The judge stacked his papers square. If there is nothing further, he said, and looked directly at me. The court thanks the residents for their patience. We stood because everyone stood. The applause flared again, then faded into a hush that felt ceremonial. Out in the hall, doors opened and closed in a rhythm that sounded like a town remembering how to be ordinary. George's hand found my shoulder. Torque chart simple, he said. Right tool, right pressure stop when it sets. I smiled. It's set. He nodded toward the tray, now sliding toward the side door with the clerk. Prop's done its work, he said. Keys are just echo. We stepped into the aisle. People shook my hand, then Sarah's, then George's. Thank you, someone said. About time, said another. At the threshold, I looked back once. The clock ticked its stubborn click. The red folder glowed against the wood. The microphone light went dark. Finally, someone fought back, I said. The morning breeze lifted the red flag on our mailbox and let it fall again, soft as a sigh. Across the street, the new board parked a folding table under the maple trees, the same ones that used to frame Patricia's lectures about lawn uniformity. Now they shaded something quieter, a card table with envelopes each marked Refund Distribution. Maple Ridge Restored 2025. Sarah was already outside, coffee in hand. You ready? She asked. I nodded, wiping dust from the small wooden plaque on my workbench. It was wrapped in brown paper and twine, stamped filed 412-07 in faint gray across one corner, George's idea of humor. By 10, half the neighborhood had gathered on the community green. Folding chairs again, but this time they faced each other instead of a podium. The new board treasurer, a retired mail carrier named Linda, stood with the tray of keys and envelopes. We'll start from the top of the list, she said, her voice calm, steady. Refunds, first, plaques, after. Children darted between lawn chairs chasing a soccer ball. Someone tuned a radio to the oldies low enough to be background. The air smelled like cut grass and promise. When Linda called our name, Sarah and I stepped forward. She handed us an envelope, the county seal embossed, and a small envelope marked Garage Copy. Inside was a typed note, Restitution complete. License permanently revoked. File closed. George, standing a few feet back, gave a single nod. Closure's lighter when it's paper, he said. Feels heavier to me, I replied. He smiled. That's because it's real. Linda held up a small brass plaque wrapped in tissue. Final item, she said. From the board to the neighborhood. She peeled the paper back. The inscription caught the sunlight. Maple Ridge Restored 2025 Accountability, Community, Peace. A brief silence spread, respectful and full. Sarah clapped first, then others joined until the air itself seemed to approve. We walked home slow. On our porch, the wind flipped a page of last week's county record headline, still visible, former HOA head-sentenced funds returned. In the garage, I cleared a space above the tool bench. The pegboard glinted with wrenches lined by size, a torque chart pinned beside them, George's other lesson. Beside it, I mounted the framed county order, its seal raised and official, and above it, the brass plaque. Sarah watched from the doorway. Looks right there, she said. It belongs to everyone, I said, but it starts here. Outside, kids pedaled by on bikes, their laughter rising, then fading down the block. No one measured the curb or the height of the mailbox or the angle of the trash bin. Just movement and ordinary sound. George's truck rolled past slowly. Window down, he raised a hand. Torque held, I nodded. Tight enough?" He grinned, then drove on. Sarah leaned against the doorframe. "Think she'll ever come back? Maybe to visit the plaque," I said, but not to measure it. She laughed, quiet and easy. The smell of barbecue drifted from the cul-de-sac, someone starting early for the weekend. I took the lighter from the workbench, lit the grill, and watched the flame catch. The plaque shone in the window's reflection gold against the pegboard. I realized the sound that filled the space wasn't victory or noise. It was just life going on, unmeasured, unpoliced. The breeze carried the faint rustle of leaves, a single bird calling once, then twice. Freedom, I thought sometimes, sounds like nothing at all. Morning sunlight flashed off the brass plaque, the same seal stamped filed, Theater 1207, now catching dust instead of fear. The new board stood by the green, handing out refund envelopes and shaking hands. I mounted the framed order beside my tools, the smell of varnish mixing with barbecue smoke drifting from the cul-de-sac. Justice here wasn't thunder. It was paperwork signatures and quiet applause that finally meant peace. We learned that rules aren't cages when they're honest. They're fences that keep decency in. Finally, someone fought back. Share your HOA story below your map might help someone redraw theirs.